That's the honor of teaching. That we're planning so that others can harvest, so others can eat, others can benefit. That's the power of what we do, and that's why you gotta be a hype team. You have to be. You can't. We can't be a tiny spark for kids. You gotta light it up.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Hype2Teach podcast. It's the podcast that goes beyond the classroom, beyond the lesson plans, and focuses on the teacher or the administrator as a person. I'm your host, Joel Nieto, and joining me today is a very, very special guest. He's been called the Barack Obama of administrative leadership. He's the author of several books, from The Immortality of Influence to an upcoming book called Retention for a Change: How to Motivate, Inspire, and Energize Your School Culture. He's the recipient of the Marcus A. Foster Award for Outstanding School District Administrator, the Martin Luther King Award from the University of Pennsylvania. He's been a regular on the Dr. Oz Show, CNN, C-SPAN, the Oprah Network, NPR, but today is his crowning achievement as an honored guest on the Hype2Teach podcast. He is known to many as Principal L, but he is the one, he is the only, he is the incomparable Salome Thomas-El. Principal L, how are you today?
I'm good, bro. I'm good, man. I'm happy to be here. And you are right. I'm hyped. I am hyped.
And you know what? That's the vibe I got from you, man. To let people know how you and I got connected, my principal, Tasha Ladarjean from Navarro Middle School, had you as a guest speaker for the kids in the morning. And 2 minutes in, I was like, you know what? Me and this guy, there's something about him, man, that I like. I just liked your energy. I liked your attitude. And I thought, you know what, who better to have on the Hype2Teach podcast than Principal L?
But listen, I'm happy to be here, and we need our teachers to be hyped. As you know, some of these children we work with can give an aspirin a headache. So you better be hyper like a viper. You're trying to help some of these young people. But you know what? Parents don't keep their good kids home, man. They send us who they have, and send us to us to help them reach their hopes and dreams. And I see you got hope back there. That's one of my words for this year behind you: hope and then love. So that's the two keys to life, and definitely for any of you aspiring educators or administrators out there, you better have some hope in sight and love in your heart, and you're ready for the fight. See, I love the round too.
Oh yeah, that was I know you're an avid rap battler. So
yeah, I see a couple of students from the school challenge me to a battle.
Hey, Principal L, man, you don't want to mess with these kids. They're real.
I know they are. I know. I better stick to wrapping Christmas gifts.
I sent you an email. I said, I was like, hey, be prepared for a rap battle. Send. And as soon as I hit send, I was like, what am I doing? I don't know how to rap battle. And I heard you do have some bars, man.
Yeah, I try a little bit. I'm an old school rap fan. I don't listen to this 35 Cent and Snoop Cat and all these guys. These kids.
When you came to my school and I saw you there, and I read all your accolades, Oprah Winfrey Network, C-SPAN, CNN, regular appearances on Dr. Oz, several books. I mean, I joked around calling you the Barack Obama of administrative leadership, but man,
yeah, I've never heard that.
You never heard that one? That's a Hype2Teach exclusive, man. Put on the back of your new book.
Yes, sir. I'm going to do that. Put your name right there.
So what I want to get to is, how do you go from who you are? I mean, we're right now today, you're Principal L, but you're Salome Thomas-El. So what's the origin story, and how did you get here from where you started teaching back in 1987, I believe?
Yes, sir. 1987. So I was born and raised in North Philadelphia, in the city, housing projects, public housing, raised by a single mom. My mother's from the South, moved up north, raised 6 boys, 2 girls, and by herself. And I was the next to the youngest kid, and we struggled. And my older brothers, sisters didn't graduate from college, and my mother walked in. My 3rd grade teacher was a young white female, not from our community, but there every day saving Private Ryan, doing her best. And my mother said, I need some help. She had that teachable spirit. My mother passed away in 2002, but she was such a great leader and role model for me, a mentor. And she advocated for me, and she asked those teachers to help me. And my third grade teacher worked with my fourth grade teacher, was an older African-American female who had been in our school about 30, 40 years. We thought she came with the building. She had about 10 after school programs, man, and not one had a title. They were all called Get In Here, you know. But those two ladies helped me get into a middle magnet school for gifted kids. I went on to high school, started playing high school ball, thought I could skip college and go right to the NBA. And I had some great teachers in high school and counselors who said, listen, son, you're not going to the NBA. They said, you can't jump over a credit card. So you're not going, but you're smart enough to get an MBA. Why don't you go away to college and come back and help the same community that supported you? And I came back and started substitute teaching in the same school where I graduated. I was working in sports TV part-time. My high school teacher helped me get that job.
Wow.
And so every week I was working for an arm of sports channel. Every week, every month, we spend a day with Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Julius Erving. One day with Charles Barkley was very interesting, I'll tell you. But we produced a feature on these guys that aired halftime of NBA games.
Yeah.
And I went to speak to these kids in the high school, and the kids said, listen, if you can come in and motivate us, how come you aren't a teacher? You know, and I thought these kids had taught me that I'd become the same person I complained about, someone who the community supported and nurtured. I made it out and didn't give back. So I quit my TV job, got a master's degree. A couple years later, went right back to the same high school and started teaching, Joe. And I thought the young people would run up to me and say, welcome back, Mr. L.
Yeah.
They said, you know, you were a fool to leave that TV job. I wanted you to hook me up with a job when I graduated. But it was the best move I ever made.
I know, best choice I ever made too. So you just fast forwarded through a ton of history in the span of a few seconds. So you said you struggled in school, but you had people who poured into you, and
Yes,
then you jumped into substitute teaching. Now, how does one make that? Because if I ask my kids, that I work with, hey, what are you gonna do after college? Like you said, MBA, rap, mechanic, they have all, but teacher is the last thing on their mind, much less a substitute teacher, which is, in kids' minds, bottom of the food chain, you know what I'm saying? So,
right. That's like going to Afghanistan with no weapon, you know what I mean? Or to the Middle East, to the war. That's like going to war,
Yeah.
No disrespect to the Middle East, but just going to war when you're a substitute teacher, that's like going to war with no weapons, no artillery, no nothing, man. It's like you and the kids.
Yeah, for 100%, dude.
Right.
So how do you make that? Like, what made you even get into that instead of going the more common route of fast food or something, like other things other people do when they get out of
because the job that I had, I worked in sports TV, and so the events were at night. So I worked at night. So I had time during the day. Gotcha. But we would also travel because we'd have to go and travel to Boston to see Larry Bird, DC to see Red Auerbach. We'd have to go to New York to Julius Erving's home, Alabama, Barclays, So I couldn't have a job where I had to say, can I take off? So I needed a job where I just show up. I just glow up when I show up.
Yeah.
So substitute teaching was the ideal thing, but it was just something for me to pay bills. I didn't want to become a teacher.
So that wasn't even in the back of your mind.
No, I wanted to be on ESPN. That was my goal.
Okay.
And then when my high school teacher invited me to come to a career day program to speak to some kids, and she changed my life during the time when she was my teacher.
Gotcha.
But she really impacted my life when she invited me to come and speak to those kids, because she knew, most teachers, they'll have an ulterior motive. Whenever we do something with a kid, it's always more into the package. They just don't see it. And I know that when she invited me, she knew that those kids would somehow touch me in a way that would make me see that was my calling, man. And that was really that was a gift that she gave to me, the invitation to come and be there in front of those children. And I'm just glad that God spoke to me through them, through the mouths of babes, to say, hey, listen, we need you. That was 34 years ago, bro.
Hey, get this. You know how old I am, man?
50, 49. Don't you not tell me
34, son.
No.
34.
Wow.
Yeah, when I read that on your bio, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to bring that up. You know what I'm saying?
So were you born in 87 or 86, 87?
I was born September 8th, 1987. To
1987. You were born the year.
the strong Neri Belisano, my mother. So
Yeah.
yeah, man, single moms, yeah, they
So
have a special place in heaven.
where you born? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Rosenberg, Texas, and you know, in this area, that's where I grew up through. Went to college, University of Houston, moved back and started teaching in the place in the district in which I graduated from. So,
Right.
you know, it's a lot of same kids, a lot of people. I mean, in my apartment
Yes,
complex where I live at, I mean, there's certain kids, you know, that I see on the daily. So it's extra incentive to make good relationships, if you know what I mean.
yeah, and that's how it was when I started teaching. When I
Yeah.
started teaching, I didn't have a car, so I was catching the bus with some of these kids, right? But many of them lived in the community. I knew their families, and so I knew most of their older brothers, some of their parents and whatnot. So it was a way for me to sort of have that built-in connection with some of them because we were from the same community. I had those same experiences, as you know. So you know you have that empathy for them and make those connections. So it's definitely definitely can be an asset.
All right, so you talked about, you know, your beginning early childhood, how you got into subbing, how somebody inspired you, and through a chance encounter with God, you know, just of being able to speak to these kids got you an education. How long were you a teacher before you transitioned into administration?
So I started teaching in 87, and I became a principal in 1999. But
Okay.
I was an assistant principal for about a year and a half before that. So so I
What'd you
taught
teach?
I was a math teacher and special education.
Oh, nice.
And then I ran an alternative learning program right within our school. So the students who were in trouble didn't have to leave the school. They just came. I had a program called the Second Chance Program. So when you messed up in school, you had to come spend a couple weeks with me. Sometimes it'd be a month for some kids because some of them took them 2 hours to watch 60 minutes. So they didn't know they had to behave themselves so they get back in class. But what I did was I turned that into an advanced mathematics class. So I had kids who were in trouble learning algebra in the early grades.
It's the definition of a captive audience.
Right. So I had parents who would come to me and say, I don't never want my kid out of that, bro. I want him to They're like, no, mom, no. You know, but and look, some of the guys who were in my program, some have their master's degrees now. These were kids that were in alternative school. You know, just one's a teacher now.
Okay, so let you know, you brought up something that made me think. When I was researching and doing my research for this interview, I can't, you know, I couldn't think of a better name for a book than The Immortality of Influence. And can you and I feel like I kind of know where you're coming from, but can you expound a little on that? Because I kind of feel like what you were just talking about, like, you know, you had this connection with these kids, this captive audience, and now they have master's degrees and they have, you know, so talk to me about that title.
Yeah. And that's exactly what, so my first book was I Choose to Stay. So that was my life, right? That was my life story. Arnold Schwarzenegger wrote the foreword. Disney bought the movie rights.
Yeah, I heard about that. Nice.
Yeah. Now they didn't make the movie. We're trying to get Will Smith to play me in the movie, but there was some contractual issues with the producers. But Will wrote the foreword in my Immortality book, which is the follow-up to I Choose to Stay. So I Choose to Stay, the students are in elementary, middle school, high school, they're chess players. But in the Immortality of Influence, these kids are in college and law school, you know, and it's really, the book is about the power of influence and mentoring, how we pour into young people, and not just the impact of educators, but there's a chapter on the influence of fathers, you know, on their children, on the influence of husbands on their family, the influence of men in the community, you know, unrecognized influence, how there are people who influence us. We don't even realize it until maybe 10 years later. You know, there's so many different ways that we can influence, you know, the influence of community on what we do. But it's the power of how we are connected through our acts and not just our words. Not, you know, people can hear your testimony, but they want to see your testimony as well. And 100%. I think that's what influence, you know, really is. And that's what the immortality is, because those students, still students that you have right now in your classroom,
Yeah.
they may not ever thank you. They may not ever say they love you or anything. 10,
No.
20 years now, somebody's going to say, yo, who made a difference in your life? I'm going to say, Mr. Nieto. He really, he was a pain. He stayed on my case. But you know what? He made sure that I graduated. I did what I needed to do. And I want to thank him. And you may not ever hear that, but somebody else is going to hear that and say, yeah, you know what? I need to be a teacher. I need to be a coach. I need to be a mentor. And that's what that influence, that immortality, it lives on long beyond us, your influence.
Yeah, man, it's like you know that the good book says some plant, some water, and others harvest. And
Right.
yeah, a lot of times that's the thing about teaching. It's like it's a lot of planting seeds, and sometimes you're not the one to harvest, and you don't get to see all that fruit. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you store up you store up treasures in heaven, man, and
Bro,
that stuff pays off.
we are planting seeds for trees whose shade we know we won't get to enjoy. See that we're planting trees we know we won't ever, but you know what? We know somebody will.
Yeah.
See, that's the power of being. That's the honor of teaching. That we're planting so that others can harvest, so others can eat, others can benefit. That's the power of what we do, and that's why you gotta be a hype team. You have to be. We can't be a tiny spark for kids.
No,
You
you
gotta
really
light it
can't.
up.
You have to. I mean, like, I almost feel as if like bringing anything less than your A game, it's a disservice not only to the kids but to yourself. I mean, like I feel like God plants us in places that we need to be, not just to water, but to be watered. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
I have friends in COVID's coming up. Yeah, I mean, we're in COVID. COVID's here, but my
Yes, yeah,
wedding's my wedding's coming up. That's what I was talking to you about the other day, and
yeah.
like I told you, it was going to be a list of 20 people at first, and
Yeah,
and we're Mexican.
I would love to see your wedding list of 20 people. I'd love to see that.
Oh, okay. Look, let me tell you, I'm telling you, 13 aunts and uncles, and we're Mexican, Principal L. So we be getting
Right.
down. I have a ton of cousins.
Yeah,
So
that's why I can't see 20.
hey, trust me, it was a rough. I mean, my mom was upset for a little bit, and my
Right.
dad's feeling this and that, but it's like that's kind of what we're looking at right now.
Right.
Thank God we increased it to 50, but I can say this, it's funny how like when you're forced to really whittle down who you want to spend, one of the most important days of your life with, the
Right.
people around you. And circling back to what I was saying, many of those names on that list, were people that I became friends with through the teaching job. You know
Wow.
what I'm saying? Because you get in there and you compared it to war earlier. And I've never been in war before, but I do know what it's like to be under stress, from first bell to last bell, and the bonds that you can form in that, especially with like-minded individuals. Like I remember when I first got in there, I never went to the teacher's lounge because and that stuff was toxic. I hated the way they talked about kids and the way they talked about parents and
avoid that.
And so you start to like search out people who view the world the way you view the world, and are going to continue to feed that you talk about the fire, feed that in you. And I did, and shout out to Veronica Soto and Dino Almeida and Kathleen Clayton and Rosie Compion and the one and only Miss Gallo. They loved me first and they love me best, man, and we're still close. So
Great. Those are some of your co-workers.
Oh yeah, man, give them a shout out always.
Yeah, definitely, man. They deserve that. That's the immortality of influence. That's what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? That's why I loved, just coming, being on for a few minutes with the kids at the school and in the staff, because we were able to connect, through that. You never know when you have the opportunity to connect with someone, you may create a bond that might last 30, 40 years. So, we got to pay respect to that, because some people, unfortunately, don't have the benefit of those friendships and relationships. They're valuable. I mean, you talk about loyalty, people who are loyal to you, committed, devoted, support you. we can't take that lightly, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you were there for a little bit, and here we are having a conversation. I mean, who knows? You might have to get Antonio Banderas, man, cast him in that movie. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I'll make an appearance. So you never know where this job
Yes,
takes
sir.
you. So anyway, we
Yes,
talked about who you were when you were a kid. We talked about becoming a teacher, becoming an administrator. Now, when do you get your first big, when do you become the cultural icon, the education icon? I forgot what I was reading on one of the websites I was talking about you. Number one, bestseller, author, bestselling author. How does that become? How do those two worlds connect?
So when I started teaching, I was teaching mathematics, and I had a group of special ed kids that I was teaching in one of the classes. And I started, and I would learn to play chess early. And my brother taught me to play chess, my older brother, but he taught me just enough moves so he could continue to beat me. So I started studying chess in college, and after I graduated and realized how mathematical it was. And so I wanted to start using it, in my teaching. So I started teaching these students, these special ed students, mathematics on the chessboard. Knights move on right angles, bishops move on diagonals. The chessboard is a large square that contains 64 smaller squares.
Yeah.
So I thought I was just giving these students mathematics, but I was really giving them intellectual capital. They were now walking around the school carrying chessboards. And if you don't think anything else about a kid who carries a chessboard, you assume that they are intelligent.
Yeah.
So these kids are walking, these kids, you play chess? Aren't you in the learning disabled program? They say, yeah, let's play a match and see if you should be my roommate, right?
Hey.
So it humbles you. So these students started beating me right away. Then all the students started playing. They were beating all the teachers. So I started taking the teachers had taken the tournaments. We took them to other schools. They were beating other schools, middle schools, high schools. Then they beat Bucknell University's chess team. And these were middle school kids. And so Arnold Schwarzenegger, so my kids won the national chess title in April 1997 in Knoxville, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. So we came back. Arnold Schwarzenegger was on his run for governor, president, and he stopped at our school in Philly, and he started talking about, playing golf and technology and politics. And then he started talking about chess. I said, Arnold, you don't want to talk about chess at our school. Our kids are real good. You might want to talk about terminating people, maybe being expendable. He said, no, I make everybody play on the movie set. Everybody plays chess, keeps them alert. I had to learn when I was young. Then he challenged one of my girls. He said, I want to play. So you don't want to play this girl, Luke. Denise Pickard, pink glasses, honor roll student, one of the top 50 female chess players in the nation in the Asian business. Arnold, you don't want to play Denise. He said, no, I want to play her. Right? So Denise, I was scared. Mr. L, he's rich, he's famous. He's married to a woman who has more money than he does. So I know he's upset.
American royalty, man.
They teach you right. So she said, I checkmated him just like he was another guy. Arnold said, you terminated the Terminator. So then he wrote a check for our program for $20,000. And then Arnold, and Arnold said, listen, you write a book about these kids yet? And I said, listen, I'm working on one. When I write it, would you write the foreword? And he said, yeah, I'll write. You write it, send it to me. So
love it, dude.
I figured Arnold, I'll never hear from Arnold again. Send it to his people. Arnold contacted me. He remembered Denise and wrote about her in the foreword of the book. I'm gonna send you a copy. I'm gonna autograph a copy.
Okay.
And then right after that, a couple years later, I'm like, listen, I want the whole school to play chess.
Yeah.
So that's when I took over. I took over an elementary school, one block from the middle school. So I had elementary and middle school kids, playing chess. And that's sort of how I became like Principal L, like it's like, Principal L. And then once I wrote the second book, then I'm at Will Smith's house for the weekend. The word got back to Philly. I'm out in California chilling with Will Smith. Then everything just blew up from there. I started speaking all over the country. Yeah. Then I got offered, I got offered all these big jobs to leave the inner city, and I turned them down, 6-figure jobs to go to other suburban school districts. Even when I signed a deal with Disney, they wanted me to leave and be a producer. And I said, no, I'm not leaving my job. I can't write a book and tell kids I choose to stay. And the kids said to me, we choose to stay too. We could be anywhere, many of us, but we choose to be here, with you, Mr. L. And so And so that became sort of my story. And that was, that was like, that was my life. I'm working with the kids that most of society has forgotten about. Most of society has given up on these kids, but I'm going to edit their story. And I'm going to help them become successful.
Amen.
So I was a kid.
All right. So, I mean, to be respectful of your time, man, I know we said 20 minutes and we're a little over that, but you talked about a book called Retention for a Change. It's about, I guess, stopping the turnover rate that happens in the education business, which, I mean, truth be told, I mean, I see it every day. So what inspired you to make that book?
And that's going to be huge after this pandemic. There's talk that there's going to be a huge exodus of teachers once this pandemic is over. Some because of the way teachers have been treated, but also just the stress of teaching during this pandemic. So, so my
you're all virtual, right?
All virtual, yeah.
Yeah.
But this is nationwide. They're saying it's going to be a huge teacher shortage nationwide after the pandemic. But I choose to stay Immortality of Influence. My third book is called Passionate Leadership. And that was really about how, as leaders, we set the tone for the culture in our schools. And as teachers, we set the tone for the culture in our classrooms. So then my fourth book was Building a Winning Team. How to recruit and get great people, great teachers. What we get positive people in school, people who don't go in the staff lounge and say negative things about kids, say negative things about other teachers, about the community. Who's going to come in and bring some positivity, some hope, some love, some empathy, some patience, you know what I mean? Those kinds of things. How do we get those people on our team? Because that's how you build a winning team. When you bring people to the team who love kids before they ever meet them. That's how you build a winning team. So the follow-up to that book is Retention for Change, because it's one thing to recruit a great teacher. Yeah. But how do you keep that teacher? Because there are other schools, they're trying to get that teacher from you, right?
I feel you.
And the same strategies that you use to recruit those teachers, you have to use to retain them. And those strategies you use to retain them build a strong culture. And when you build a strong culture, it helps you retain teachers. So the best form of retention is recruitment, and the best form of recruitment is retention. Because people you keep, they will go out and recruit other people to come to your school. They'll talk about you. They'll be in the rest. I've had teachers say, how they come for an interview? How'd you find out about the school? Did you see an ad? No, I'm a waitress in a restaurant. I heard these two teachers talking about how much fun they have at work. I said, what school you work at? They said, yeah, your school, Thomas Edison. They said, you would love our principal. He's crazy. So I decided to come in for an interview. I said, yup, you're going to meet a real crazy man right now. But I'm crazy about my teachers. I'm crazy about my kids. And so anything my teachers want and need, if it's going to help our kids become successful, I do everything to make sure that I provide it for them. That's what leadership is about. Leadership is about service. If you don't serve, you can't lead.
All right. So let me ask you this, man. Well, 3 quick questions and then we'll wrap up. Okay. The first being, if there's one piece of advice in all your 34 years of being in the education field, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give any admin watching this at any level, be it assistant principal, be it principal, be it Dr. Thomas Randall, who's the superintendent? What would be a piece of advice you shoot their way?
My advice would be always stay connected to people who are on the ground. Right, the Pope came to Philly. I'm from Philly. I got on a Phillies jersey. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I got the Eagles Super Bowl ticket behind me. Okay. I'm a huge Philly fan. The Pope came to Philly a few years ago, and one of the most profound things he said is that a good shepherd knows how the sheep smell, how the sheep feels. Right, a good shepherd maintains close proximity to the sheep. So when you become a leader, you can't be so distant from everybody else that you don't know how they feel, and you don't know what troubles them. So stay connected, build those relationships, and hold on to them. That's the janitor, that's the cook, that's the bus driver. I ride those school buses. I'm in the kitchen helping and cleaning and wiping off tables, and the cleaners and the cooking staff is looking like, you're the principal, you're wiping off. I said, yes, I'm supposed to be willing to wash your feet if you need that. That's what I have to do. If I'm here to serve you, that's what I do. And when the kids see me doing that, then they don't want to leave any trash because I'm not cleaning up behind you, or they're going to come and help, help me clean, helping to train them. So stay connected and remember that this work is about helping to uplift others. It's not about being a boss. It's about making sure that we uplift others. And I'm sorry for going overtime, but you always got to be careful.
I trust me. If there's anybody who should be apologizing, I feel like it's me. I'm just soaking it in.
You just have to be careful when you invite like a part-time wannabe reverend, on your show. Sometimes
Hype2Preach.
Start getting the sermon. You say, I thought I was going to have a hype teacher, and I got a hype preacher. But I got to do anything to reach you. So
you can't turn it off.
I can't. I'm coming from the field all the way to the bleachers because I got to do everything I can to get that word, because it might be one person in your audience right now that needs to hear this. That needs to hear what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Might be ready to give up right now, and then make that decision. Say, you know what? I found my why. It isn't about me. It's about what my impact that I'm having on someone else. So I'm always aware of that. Want to make sure that the word is out. So I appreciate you giving me a speaker to be able to get that word out there.
Okay, so thanks, man. No, I thank you. I think we talk about the immortality of influence, and words have power, man.
Amen.
And sometimes it's that one word that sticks with you, and at the right time, at the right moment, that comes back maybe a year later, but it's like an earworm. It got in there and it comes back. So 2 more questions and I'll let you go. Second one, and we talked about a piece of advice you'd give to, current administrators and superintendents, even. I mean, the power of leadership. What would you say to someone who is that they're starting to get that itch to maybe make the transition from teacher to something more, maybe administrator, maybe a testing coordinator, but they have goals that are now growing beyond the classroom? What kind of advice would you give that person?
So my advice for the aspiring administrator or aspiring leader, the person who's thinking about moving out of that classroom, is that one of the things that I always held close to me is that no matter what I do, I'm always teaching. So I still substitute teach in my school. When I got a teacher absent, you might walk into class and see Principal L covering the class, because that's in our blood, it's in our DNA. But also lets the teachers know I'm willing to do exactly what I'm asking you to do. I'm willing to do that. But
first
also,
one in, last one out, man.
Right. And when you become an administrator, when you become a leader, you're teaching adults. That can be even more. I remember telling my mother when I wanted to become a teacher, she said, listen, best thing you could ever do, just remember that every teacher is not a parent, but every parent is a teacher. When I wanted to become a principal, I said, Mom, I want to become a principal. She said, you don't lost your mind, boy. I said, why you say that? She said, who wants to supervise a dog? I said, I'm tired of breaking up fights in the cafeteria. She said, don't you know, as a principal, you will break up more fights between your teachers you ever had. She said, but don't be arrogant. Arrogance is the Achilles heel of the school leader. So my message to aspiring administrators and current administrators, do not be arrogant. We can learn from the people that we serve, learn from the people that we work with. Be humble and choose impact over compliance.
Dino Almeida, you better be listening to this. Dino Almeida is one of the guys, man. He's the guru of the growth mindset. One of my dear friends. So yeah,
does he work at the school? Is he at the school?
Yeah. He's got his master's and he's got some aspirations. And if
there's
anybody who loves leadership, it's that guy.
We're looking for him to join the ranks, man. Come on, we need you.
Okay, so final question. Every time we do one of these podcasts, I get educators on, principals, admins, people who give teachings and trainings. I always like to end with this. Education is not the easiest field. It is not the highest paid field all the time, So why does Principal L, why does Mr. Salome Thomas, what makes him be an educator?
Woo! What makes me be an educator?
Why do you choose this?
Well, I guess why I choose to stay. Why do you choose to stay?
I ain't plugging books left and right, man.
I got to get you I choose to stay shirt too, man. If the principal had one on, the assistant superintendent, that's how he ended up coming into the session, because he saw her with the shirt on one day. So I got to make sure I got some my shoes. So everybody's sort of wearing these different quotes, some of my quotes on the back. but just making that expression, that I choose to stay for the kids. That's what it's about. So I choose to stay because people chose to stay for me. I wouldn't be here today without those teachers in 3rd grade and 4th grade and high school who told me I couldn't jump over a credit card, but they supported me. Those people made sacrifices for us. Those folks who helped us, even our own parents, did without so much, so that we can become, successful. So I choose to stay for those people who chose to stay for me, but also to be an example for these young people to grow up and become teachers and administrators and nurses and counselors, and who choose to stay and serve others. And that's really why I do, what I do, because I know there's some young people out there who, if not for school, may not have an adult who tells them that they're beautiful, may not have an adult who tells them that they're smart, may not have an adult who tells them they can be successful. But people like you and your colleagues, the great people of Texas who just went through, such a tough time, with these storms,
apocalypse,
supported each other, helping out families. I saw what people were doing. That's a great example for young people. And that's how we build resilient young people. Building resilient young people is not about teaching them how to be successful. It's about teaching them how to respond when they're not successful. That's how we build resilient kids. That's what we end with. We want every kid in Penn State instead of the state pen. And we teach these kids how to become resilient. And let's stop praying for a lighter load and start praying for a stronger back.
And with that, let's go ahead and wrap this podcast. Guys, this has been another episode of the Hype2Teach podcast, the podcast that goes beyond the classroom, beyond the lesson plans, and focuses on the educators and the administrators and anybody who makes a difference in the school system as a person. I've been your host, Joel Nieto. This has been is it Dr. Salome or is it Mr. Salome?
Dr. L, brother, Dr.
Oh,
now my 2nd graders call me Dr. Principal L. I said, why? They said, well, we don't want to call you by your first name. They think principal is my first name.
So, Mr. Salome, before we wrap up, anything you want to plug, or where can people follow you if they want to hear more of this?
Well, I'm on Instagram at principal_EL. I'm sorry, I'm on Twitter at principal_EL, at Dr. Principal L on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. My website is principal.l.com. But I don't want to plug anything other than the most noble profession out there, and that's teaching. Now, short of people in the military out there fighting for our nation, those are some brave soldiers. But short of them, right, there's nothing more noble, more courageous that you can do than be a teacher and go out on those front lines and fight for those children. So tonight, bruh, today, my hat is off to all of those folks out there who are sacrificing, who are planting trees, whose shade they may not ever enjoy. Bringing full circle, planting trees whose shade they may not ever enjoy.
And I think I jumped the gun earlier, but let me wrap it up one more time. This has been the Hype2Teach podcast. I've been your host, Joel Nieto. This has been Dr. Salome Thomas-El. Thank you for watching. We love you and keep on learning. Bye, and we're out. Okay. I loved it, man.
Yeah. That's going to be a hot show.